The audacity was breathtaking in its simplicity. I was standing in our kitchen, the cold marble island pressing against my palms, when Cohen adjusted his silk tie in the reflection of the espresso machine and said it. "I'm going to stay at my ex's place for a month," he announced. His voice smooth, rehearsed. "Just for a vibe shift. To realign my chakras. It's not really wrong if I tell you first, right?" Across the room, my 19-year-old stepdaughter, Blakely, didn't look up from her phone, but I saw the smirk. She angled the camera toward me, waiting for the explosion. Waiting for the weeping, the begging, the breakdown of the fragile wife. But I didn't give her the show. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply nodded, finished my black coffee, and walked to my home office to draft the paperwork. Because Cohen wasn't leaving for a spiritual journey. He was violating a contract. And I was the compliance officer who was about to audit his entire existence. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. To understand why I didn't scream, you have to understand who I am. My name is Natalie, and I am 34 years old. I work as a senior compliance officer for a multinational investment firm. My job isn't about feelings. It's about risk management. It's about analyzing data, identifying vulnerabilities, and neutralizing threats before they become catastrophes. I spend my days staring at spreadsheets, legal frameworks, and regulatory guidelines. I am paid very well to be intolerant of ambiguity. My life is a grid of precision. My condo in downtown Denver is a glass box in the sky, minimalist and sterile, exactly how I like it. Every object has a place. Every expense is tracked. Control is my love language. Cohen, on the other hand, is a luxury real estate agent. At least that's what his business card says. In reality, Cohen is a 36-year-old manifestation of ego. He sells an image. He talks about abundance mindsets and quantum leaps while I pay the mortgage. He wears $3,000 suits to sell houses he couldn't afford to rent. He believes the universe provides. I know for a fact that I provide. And Blakely is his 19-year-old daughter from his first marriage. She is a fashion student at a private art college. A tuition bill I pay because Cohen convinced me it was an investment in her brand. She treats me like a wallet with legs, tolerating my presence only when the credit card chip works. When Cohen made his declaration that morning, something shifted in my brain. It wasn't heartbreak. Heartbreak is messy. This was clarity. Cold, sharp, absolute clarity. He wanted a break. He wanted to go live in an artist loft with his bohemian ex-wife, Blair, to find himself. Fine. I would facilitate that journey. But I would do it on my terms. I sat at my desk, the dual monitors glowing in the dim light, and opened a blank document. I didn't write a love letter. I wrote a sabbatical agreement. The document was 3 pages long, single-spaced. It stated clearly that Cohen was granted a 30-day leave of absence from the marital residence for the purpose of personal alignment. During this period, all financial commingling would cease. No joint accounts, no supplementary cards, no access to the marital assets. It was a liability waiver for my soul. I printed 2 copies and walked back into the kitchen. Cohen was still there, sipping a green juice, looking pleased with himself for being so transparent. Blakely was giggling at something on her screen. "Sign this," I said, sliding the paper across the counter. Cohen glanced at it, amused. "What is this, babe?" "A permission slip." "It's an agreement," I said, my voice flat. "You want space. I'm giving it to you. But we need to define the terms. 30 days. Total separation. You do you. Do me. Financially and physically." He laughed. A rich, throaty laugh that used to charm me. "You're so corporate, Nat. Always needing paperwork. Just a vibe shift. But sure. Whatever makes you feel safe." He picked up my pen, a Mont Blanc I had bought him for his birthday, and scrawled his signature at the bottom without reading a single line. He didn't see the clause about the freezing of assets. He didn't see the stipulation about utility payments. He just saw a hoop to jump through so he could leave. Blakely snorted. "God, you're so dramatic, Natalie. It's just a month." "Just a month," I repeated. "Enjoy it." They left an hour later. Cohen packed 3 suitcases of designer clothes, his collection of crystals, and his gratitude journals. Blakely packed her weekend bag, eager to go hang out at her cool mom's loft. I stood by the window and watched them load up the Range Rover, the lease I paid for. I watched them drive away, merging into the Denver traffic, chasing a fantasy of freedom. The moment the taillights disappeared, the condo fell silent. It was a heavy, suffocating silence at first. The ghost of their noise lingered, Blakely's TikToks blaring, Cohen's motivational podcasts echoing in the shower. But then I breathed. I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with air that didn't smell like his sandalwood cologne or her cheap vanilla body spray. I walked to the kitchen island, picked up the signed agreement, and filed it neatly into a blue folder labeled Active Contracts. I didn't feel like a wife who had just been abandoned. I felt like a CEO who had just successfully spun off a non-performing asset. This wasn't a tragedy. It was a restructuring. And now the real work began. I sat back down at my computer. It was time to audit the books. I opened the spreadsheet I had been avoiding for years. The one titled Household Expenses. I started going line by line. The lease on the Range Rover, $1,200 a month. The insurance, $300. The cell phone plan for 3 lines with unlimited data, $400. The subscriptions Netflix, Hulu, HBO, Spotify, Headspace, Masterclass, Equinox membership, the wine club, the organic meal kit delivery service. It went on and on. A digital trail of consumption. And then the big one, Blakely's tuition, $18,000 a semester. Discounted heavily because my firm had a corporate partnership with the art college. Perk. Benefit. For dependents. I looked at the total at the bottom of the column. It was staggering. I had been bleeding money, bleeding labor, bleeding energy. For what? To be sneered at in my own kitchen. To be told I was stiff and boring while I subsidized their vibe. I realized then that I hadn't been a partner. I hadn't even been a wife. I had been a venture capitalist pouring seed money into a failing startup called Cohen. And the ROI was zero. Actually, it was negative. The cognitive dissonance finally broke. For years, I had told myself I was supporting his dreams. That his big commission was just around the corner. That smart women support their partners. That marriage is a team sport. But looking at the numbers, the cold, hard data, I saw the truth. This wasn't a partnership. It was a parasite-host relationship. And I was the host. I had normalized the cruelty. I had accepted the disrespect as the cost of doing business. I had convinced myself that managing his chaos was a sign of my competence. But it wasn't competence. It was complicity. I had enabled this. I had built the stage, set the lights, and paid the audience for his one-man show. And now the show was cancelled. I cracked my knuckles. The screen glowed white in front of me. I opened a new tab. The bank website. Login. Password. 2-factor authentication. I was in. I navigated to the credit card section. Authorized users. Cohen. Blakely. Status. Active. I hovered the mouse over the remove button. My finger hesitated for a fraction of a second. A reflex of guilt. A phantom echo of be nice. But then I remembered his face in the mirror. It's not really wrong if I tell you first. Arrogance. The absolute certainty that I would be here, waiting, paying, enduring. Click. Confirm removal. Next. The Uber account. Unlinked payment method. The Amazon Prime account. Change password. The Equinox membership. Cancel supplementals. I moved through the list with the efficiency of a surgeon. Cauterize. Move on. There was no anger. Anger is messy. This was administrative. This was hygiene. Then I opened my work email. I composed a message to HR. Subject. Update to benefits enrollment. Please remove Blakely Cohen from my dependent list for the Educational Partnership Program. Effective the 1st of next month. Change in domestic status. I attached the signed separation agreement as proof. Send. The tuition cliff. That was the kill shot. Without my corporate discount, the tuition would revert to the full market rate. And without my credit card, the balance would be due immediately. $18,000. Cohen didn't have $18,000. Cohen didn't have $1,800. I sat back in my chair. The silence in the condo was no longer heavy. It was crisp. It was clean. It was the sound of solvency. I poured myself a glass of water. Cold. Pure. I took a sip and watched the sun dip below the Rockies, casting long shadows across the city. The game had changed. They thought they were on a vacation. They didn't realize they had just been evicted from the simulation. 2 weeks passed. The apartment stayed clean. The laundry hamper wasn't overflowing with silk shirts. The fridge was stocked with food I liked. Greek yogurt, fresh berries, sparkling water, and it stayed there. No one ate my leftovers. No one drank the last of the milk and put the empty carton back. It was glorious. Then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I usually let those go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Hello, Natalie." The voice was breathless, confused. "It's Blair." Blair, ex-wife. The bohemian artist. The woman Cohen was currently realigning his chakras with. I stiffened. "Hello, Blair. To what do I owe the pleasure? Is he out of oat milk?" "What?" "Oh, Natalie, I need to ask you something. Cohen told me you guys were separated." "We are," I said. "Technically. For the month." "No," Blair said, her voice rising. "He said you kicked him out. He said you filed for divorce 2 weeks ago and told him to leave. He said he had nowhere to go and that you froze all his assets out of spite. He's sleeping on my couch because he said he was destitute." Pause. The pieces clicked together. "Course. He told you I kicked him out?" "Yes. He showed up with 3 suitcases and a sob story about how you were stifling his spirit and how cruel you were. He said he needed a place to crash until his big deal closed next month. But Natalie, he's been here 2 weeks and he hasn't done anything. He sleeps until noon. He drinks my wine. He complains about the thread count of my sheets. And Blakely. She's treating my studio like a hotel. She asked me where the maid service was yesterday. I almost laughed. Blair listened to me very carefully. I didn't kick him out. He asked for a sabbatical. He told me he needed a vibe shift, and that he wanted to come live with you to find himself. He signed an agreement. It was his idea. Silence on the other end. Then a sharp intake of breath. He invited himself. He told me you threw him out. I have the document, I said. He signed it. It says, mutual sabbatical initiated by Cohen. He played us both, Blair. He wanted a vacation from his responsibilities and he used you for free rent and me for. Well, he thought he was using me for safety net. But the net is gone. That son of a. Blair trailed off. I could hear the rustling of paper, maybe her moving around her loft. He's lying to me. He's lying to you. He's not finding himself. He's hiding. He's hiding from his life. Exactly, I said. And now he's your problem. No, Blair said, her voice turning steely. No, he is not. Natalie, do you want evidence? Because I have a security camera in the living room. I have recordings of him on the phone telling his buddies how he escaped the prison. I have timestamps of him coming in at 4 a.m. when he said he was meditating. You want them? I would love them, I said. The enemy of my enemy is my asset. Blair sent the files 10 minutes later. I downloaded them, adding them to the blue folder. The picture was complete. Cohen wasn't a spiritual seeker. He was a grifter. And his time was up. The climax happened on a Tuesday. I knew it would. Tuesday was the day Cohen had his big client dinner. The one he had been talking about for months. The one that was supposed to yield the commission that would solve everything. He was taking a tech CEO to the most expensive steakhouse in Denver. He needed to look successful. He needed to look rich. Check my watch. 8:30 p.m. The bill would be arriving right about now. I imagined the scene. The leather booth. The bottle of Cabernet. Laughter. The waiter placing the black leather folder on the table. Cohen reaching for his wallet, that confident smirk on his face. Pulling out the heavy metal card, the one linked to our joint account. The one I had drained to exactly $1,000 before freezing it. The dinner would cost at least $1,500. I wasn't there, but I could feel the vibration of the failure. My phone lit up. Text from my bank. Transaction declined. Steakhouse 5280. Amount: $1,840. Then another. Transaction declined. Then another. Then my phone rang. Cohen. I let it ring. Rang again. And again. Then a text. Nat, pick up. Emergency. Card isn't working. Need you to transfer funds now. Client here. I didn't reply. I took a sip of my tea. Then another text. Addison. Pick up. This is not funny. He was panic texting. He was sweating in his designer suit, the waiter hovering, the client watching, the illusion crumbling in real time. He was realizing that without me, he wasn't a high roller. He was a guy who couldn't pay for dinner. The exact same moment my email pinged. A notification from the art college. Urgent. Tuition balance outstanding. It was a copy of the email sent to Blakely. Dear student, due to the termination of the corporate partnership benefit, your tuition balance has been adjusted to the standard rate. Outstanding balance: $18,000. Please remit payment immediately to avoid suspension of enrollment. Blakely was calling me now. FaceTime. I declined. He texted. Natalie, why does my school portal say I owe $18K? Dad's card isn't working for my Uber. I'm stuck at the studio. Pick up. The symphony of consequences. It was loud. It was chaotic. And I was the conductor who had put down the baton. I didn't save them. I didn't transfer the money. I didn't call the restaurant to give a credit card number over the phone. I let the card decline. I let the embarrassment wash over him. I let the reality of his abundance meet the reality of his bank account. He had to call Blair. I found out later. He had to call his ex-wife, the woman he was lying to, and beg her to Venmo him money to pay the bill. She refused. The client ended up paying. The deal died on the table. 30 days. The calendar alert on my phone chimed. Sabbatical ends. I stood on my balcony looking down at the street. Taxi pulled up. Cohen and Blakely got out. They looked disheveled, defeated. Cohen's suit was wrinkled. Blakely was dragging her Louis Vuitton duffel bag like it weighed 1,000 pounds. They walked to the front door of the building. I watched as Cohen punched in the code. Nothing. He tried again. Nothing. He looked up at the camera, confusion clouding his face. He tried to call the concierge. The door opened, but it wasn't to let them in. The concierge, a young man named Leo who I had tipped very well that morning, stepped out. He held a large manila envelope. He handed it to Cohen. Cohen opened it. I knew what was inside. A copy of the signed sabbatical agreement. A printout of the declined transaction logs. The transcript of his texts to Blair. And a formal notice from the building management, at my request, that his access privileges had been revoked due to lease modification. He looked up. He scanned the building, his eyes searching the glass facade until they found me. I was standing there 4 stories up, holding a glass of wine. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just looked at him. I looked at the man who thought he could pause our marriage like a Netflix subscription. I looked at the girl who thought mocking me was a personality trait. They were shouting something, but I couldn't hear them over the wind. It didn't matter. The sound was off. I turned my back. I walked inside. I closed the sliding glass door and locked it. I drew the curtains. The apartment was quiet. It was cool. It was mine. I sat down on my sofa. I thought about all the times I had worried that I was too much, too rigid, too controlling, too unfun. I realized then that too much is just what people call a woman they can't use. I wasn't too much. I was just enough. Enough to save myself.